Watch out! Woody!
Surprise.
Tell the world, tell my family that I never stop fighting to make it home.
Welcome to movie recap time. For astronauts are outside their ship on Mars, collecting rock samples. Their colleagues inside the ship warn them of an approaching storm, one far worse than they had initially expected. The crew debates whether to try and wait out the storm or take off immediately. Most of them want to risk staying, but the commander uses her authority to make the final call. They will leave. As they prepare for takeoff, debris from the storm hits the ship, causing damage. The crew scrambles to repair it, but in the chaos, Mark, one of the astronauts, is struck by flying debris and sent hurtling away from the others. The impact damages his communication system, leaving him unable to contact his team. Inside the ship, the storm intensifies. The crew warns that the ship won't withstand the powerful winds for much longer. The commander orders everyone inside but stays behind, desperately searching for Mark. She does her best, but is ultimately forced to retreat to save the rest of the team. Back on Earth, the director of NASA holds a press conference. He announces that the Mars mission was a success and that the team is returning home. However, he delivers tragic news: one astronaut did not survive. Meanwhile, Mark wakes up, still on Mars, half buried in the sand. His suit is flashing multiple warning alerts about his oxygen levels and blood pressure. He slowly stands up and realizes that debris has impaled him. To maintain the air pressure inside his suit, he cuts off the excess metal but leaves the rod in place. Stumbling back to the base, he enters the habitat, surgically removes the debris from his abdomen, and staples the wound shut. Turning on a video log, he records his situation, explaining that the debris shut down his communications but also kept his suit sealed. He doesn't blame his crew for leaving him behind. They had every reason to believe he was dead. Mark realizes it will be at least 4 years before another manned mission arrives on Mars. His food supply, however, will only last a year. As he looks around the base at the supplies left behind, he meticulously logs the remaining food. He needs a solution to survive. Fortunately, Mark is a botanist. He finds some potatoes the crew had brought for Thanksgiving and decides to figure out how to grow them. He cleans off the solar panels, hauls loads of Martian dirt inside, and spreads it around. To create fertilizer, he even goes through the crew's waste. After preparing the soil, he plants the potatoes. Water, however, is a bigger problem. He doesn't have enough for his crops, so he devises a way to make more. Using small chemical fires, he builds a system that produces water. After a few days, condensation begins forming on the walls of his makeshift garden, and tiny sprouts emerge. Back on Earth, NASA holds a funeral for Mark. Vincent, a mission planner, speaks with the director about returning to Mars to recover the abandoned equipment. The director dismisses the idea, unwilling to broadcast images of Mark's body to the public. Vincent argues that Mark's body will never decompose in Mars' environment and suggests they frame the mission as a recovery operation for his family's sake. Mindy, a satellite supervisor, receives new coordinates pointing to Mark's location. She studies the live feed and notices movement at the base. Alarmed, she makes an emergency call to the director. The footage confirms the impossible. Mark Watney is alive. Now, NASA faces a dilemma. They must release the footage within 24 hours, but they worry about the backlash. After much deliberation, they hold a press conference, vowing to do everything in their power to bring Mark home alive. On Mars, Mark studies maps and calculates the distance he must travel to reach the landing site for the next Mars mission. The location is 3,200 kilometers away, but his rover can only travel 35 kilometers at a time. The journey will take around 50 days. To prepare, he modifies the rover to travel farther without needing to return to the base for recharging. He successfully doubles the battery life, but must turn off the heating system to conserve power. With Mars' freezing temperatures, survival without heat is impossible. Thinking quickly, he digs up some radioactive material to keep in the back of the rover as a heat source. NASA announces another press conference, revealing their discovery. Mark is trying to reach the next Mars mission's landing site. They accelerate the mission's timeline, hoping to reach him in 9 months instead of 4 years. However, they decide not to inform his crew yet, fearing it would distract them from their journey home. Back on Mars, Mark successfully harvests 400 potatoes. Here he plants the smaller ones and sets aside the larger ones for food. While scavenging, he locates the long-lost Pathfinder rover and devises a way to use it for communication. NASA, using their replica on Earth, moves its camera to signal him. To enhance communication, Mark creates a hexadecimal system, allowing him to ask more than just yes or no questions. NASA then sends him instructions to hack into the rover, enabling direct communication. When Vincent finally tells Mark about the rescue plan, he is relieved. Eager to hear his crew's reaction, Mark asks about them, but Vincent hesitates, revealing they still don't know he's alive. Furious at NASA for keeping his friends in the dark, meanwhile, the crew, still traveling home, receives a message from NASA. As they open their communications, they learn the unbelievable truth. Mark Watney is alive, and NASA has a plan to bring him home. With careful calculations, Mark assesses his food supply. Between the remaining base rations and his potatoes, he realizes he has just enough to last until NASA can send help and Blee to send another. Mark is confident that the ship will come to get him, as long as nothing goes wrong. While tending to his garden, the entrance chamber suddenly explodes, injuring him and cracking his helmet. He quickly seals the crack with duct tape to restore his oxygen supply. Rushing back to his garden, he finds that the exposure to Mars' atmosphere has killed all his plants and destroyed the watering system. Mark contacts NASA and reports the accident. NASA realizes that unless they speed up their rescue mission, he won't have enough food to survive until they arrive. They grant permission for his old crew to contact him, and they share a moment of camaraderie, catching up and joking around. Mark begins cleaning up the base, removing the tarp and dirt from the area where he had been growing potatoes. He seals the hole left by the destroyed hatch. Meanwhile, NASA makes a risky decision. They skip inspections on the ship intended for Mark's rescue, reasoning that the process would take too long. However, during launch, disaster strikes. The ship explodes, and all their hard work is lost in an instant. Watching the news of NASA's failed mission, China's Space Division offers their assistance. With the help of Rich, a physicist, NASA devises a more efficient rescue plan that will take less time. The new plan involves the Hermes, Mark's cruise ship, swinging back into Earth's orbit to receive a fresh supply of food before heading back to Mars to pick up Mark without landing. The major issue with this plan is that it will add 500 more days to the Hermes mission. NASA's director rejects the idea, unwilling to risk the lives of everyone aboard for one man. However, another NASA coordinator finds this unfair and secretly sends the plan details to the Hermes. The crew receives the information and discusses the plan. They understand that if they proceed, it will be considered mutiny. They also acknowledge the personal sacrifices, another 500 days in space away from their families. Each member contacts their families to inform them of their extended mission. NASA soon discovers that the Hermes has deviated from its planned course. The director reprimands the coordinator who leaked the plan. Meanwhile, Mark must prepare to transport all his life-sustaining equipment, heat and oxygen supply systems, to the ship in time to rendezvous with the Hermes as it passes Mars. The Hermes swings by Earth, picking up supplies and using the planet's gravitational pull to gain momentum for its journey back to Mars without consuming excessive fuel. After 7 months, Mark starts preparing for the rendezvous. He gathers all his supplies and loads them into the rover. He also brings solar panels to recharge the rover periodically without needing to return to base. NASA determines that for Mark's ship to meet the Hermes, it needs to be moving incredibly fast. To reduce weight, they instruct Mark to remove all unnecessary equipment. He takes out everything meant for a 6-person crew, keeping only the essentials for himself. He also removes the front and sides of the ship, replacing them with lightweight tarp, and eliminates the control panels since the Hermes will be operating the ship remotely. Preparing for departure, he shaves his beard, puts on fresh clothes and a space suit, and waits for instructions from his crew. They reassure him and warn that the launch's force might cause him to lose consciousness. Mark's ship takes off, and almost immediately, the tarp is ripped away into space. As predicted, he passes out and is unable to communicate with his crew, leaving them uncertain about his condition. When he regains consciousness, the crew informs him that they won't be able to get close enough to his ship. The commander instructs a crew member to construct a small explosive to slow their ship down, increasing their chances of reaching Mark. The bomb is detonated, and while they manage to get closer, it's still not close enough. Determined, the commander straps herself to a chair outside the ship, tethered by a rope, and moves toward Mark. However, the cable isn't long enough. Thinking quickly, Mark cuts a hole in his suit, using the escaping air pressure to propel himself toward the commander. She catches him just in time, pulls him in, and they re-enter the ship to reunite with the crew. The team immediately informs NASA that they have successfully rescued Mark and are heading home. Years later, back on Earth, Mark takes on a new role, teaching NASA initiates about the importance of safety and preparedness in space. The Ares 4 mission is launched, and the former crew members of the Hermes watch from home with their loved ones, reflecting on their incredible journey. Thank you for watching. Make sure to hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an exciting story. More thrilling recaps are on the way, and you won't want to miss them. Drop a comment below and let me know your favorite moment from this story. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Stay tuned, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one. Movie Recap Time Team.